President Donald Trump could declare an emergency when it comes to the U.S. southern border. And if he does that, it could mean that the U.S. military will be in charge of building the border wall. But will it happen? Hey, everybody, I'm Chad Hasty, host of the Chad Hasty Show, which airs weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 a.m. KFYO. Politico reporting that the president will hold a address to the nation on Tuesday evening. This is what Politico reports on Monday afternoon. President Trump plans to give national address and travel to the southern border as negotiations to reopen the government remain deadlocked, as there are no real discussions happening with Democrats. The two PR moves signal that the president is not easing off his demands for billions in border funding or border wall funding that have pushed the government into one of the longest shutdowns in U.S. history. I believe we are at the third longest government shutdown in U.S. history, going on day 17 or day 18, depending on which day you are watching this. Trump said he will give an address to the nation Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time here in Lubbock, Texas. That'll be, of course, 8 p.m. We'll carry that on KFYO. If you're out driving around or want to listen to it on your smartphone, you can do that as well by downloading the KFYO app and hearing what the president is going to say. There are already some networks that are at least thinking about not even covering the president's address to the nation, as the news media not big fans of this current president. But the president labeling this address a speech or an address on the, quote, humanitarian and national security crisis on our southern border, a clear move to challenge Democrats over their insistence that they will not give him the additional border funding that he is seeking. After a weekend of talks between the vice president and other White House officials, along with congressional staffers, there are no meetings currently scheduled this week, according to the congressional sources, and underscores how far apart Democrats and the president remain. Pence told reporters Monday afternoon that the White House is looking at whether the president can declare a national emergency in order to build the wall on the border, which would sidestep the Democrats' resistance to congressional funding for Trump's top political priority. Now, NPR went through and they actually asked the question, does the president have the ability to do this? And the answer is, yeah. He does. This is from NPR, Elizabeth Goten, and I may be saying her name wrong. Declaring the emergency is actually pretty easy, said Elizabeth Goten, the co-director of the National or Liberty and National Security Program at Brenham Center for Justice. There aren't a lot of legal limits on his ability to do that, frankly, even if there isn't a real emergency happening. Now, what would happen if President Trump actually declared a national emergency on the southern border and tried to get the border wall funded or built through the U.S. military? There'd be a ton of lawsuits happening. Now, myself, as a small government conservative, I am not a fan of executive action. I would like to see Congress do something, not the long arm of the Oval Office, no matter who is the occupant, do something. I think this should be done by an act of Congress. However, Congress isn't acting right now. So the question is, will Trump do this, or is Trump using this to put more pressure on the Democrats? I've been saying for weeks now that the president should travel to the southern border, hold a press conference, talk about what's going on, address the nation as often as he can about the crisis going on the southern border and why he feels as though there's a need for a border wall, a border fence, a steel barrier, whatever the hell you want to call it, why the president believes that should be built. It's something the president should have been doing a couple of days ago, maybe a week or two ago, and he definitely should be doing it now. Now, let's also look at the timeline of what's going on. Going into Tuesday, when this address to the nation will happen, it's day 18 of the government shutdown. You're also about 3 weeks away from the State of the Union address, which will be held on January 29th. So, if I had to break out a crystal ball and predict what the president might say, he may say, Democrats, Republicans, we got 3 weeks. We got 3 weeks before the State of the Union address where we can all come together, celebrate all that is America, celebrate all of our accomplishments and what we have done and what we can do together. you've got 3 weeks in order to come down to an agreement. The president has already offered, by the way, to come down from a full wall to a partial wall and now to a a steel barrier along different parts of the border. So the president has offered up his compromises. What about the Democrats? Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats seem as though they want nothing to do with any kind of border wall funding or anything else. And this is where the president should move to and point out to the American people. Put pressure on the Democrats. Don't come on out on Tuesday evening and say that there's an emergency on the border and you're declaring a national emergency. Don't do that. Put more pressure, Mr. President, on these Democrats to act. Put more pressure on the Democrats to secure the southern border of the United States. Give them 3 weeks. Give them 3 weeks until the State of the Union address. If they still don't have it done by then go ahead. Declare the emergency if you think it's the right move to make. Again, I've already said I'm not a big fan of executive overreach, whether it was President Obama or this president or any other future president. I'm not a big fan of presidential overreach. I do think there is a crisis on the border. I do think that it is something the military could handle because they are charged with protecting the nation. So I think you can get away with it. I think that though the best solution here is to go through Congress and to put pressure on the Democrats to secure the border and the southern border of the United States. Tune in to the Chad Hasty Show weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 a.m. KFYO. And don't forget, KFYO will have the president's speech. You know, maybe not every network's going to cover the president's speech, but we will on KFYO. You can listen at KFYO.com and also on the KFYO app on your smartphone. Have a great day. We'll talk again tomorrow.